Hi, this is Peter Godinez, your ambassador, KADYTV.com. Good morning, Oxnard. We have the wonderful privilege of having Len Shulman from the Carriage Square neighborhood. And we thank you so much for being a part of this program. And what we wanted to accomplish in this is just to give us a little history about you and how you came to this particular community. So we heard from your brother from another mother just recently, and yours is a different story. You actually come from outside the community. So once upon a time, Len?
Well, actually, I originally come from Canada. I was born in Toronto in 1939 and went to school in Toronto. Actually, my wife and I came to California on our honeymoon in 1961, and the weather was like we see today.
Wow.
It was wonderful. We were going to the beach, and everything was green. We drove back home again. We drove cross country on good old Route 66.
Oh, wow.
And when we were driving home again from Toronto, or from Chicago to Toronto, it was a snowstorm. We got into Toronto and kind of looked at each other because everything was covered with sleet. Nothing was green, and we kind of looked at each other and said, what are we doing here? This is ridiculous. It took us 3 years to liquidate my business there, and actually 2 weeks to get green cards. In those days, it was very, very easy for Canadians to become Americans. All they wanted to know is you're not a felon or a communist, and you don't have TB, and welcome to the USA. So in 1964, we came to California. We settled in Hollywood, and I ended up in a totally different profession. In Toronto, I actually owned a scrap iron and metal and auto wrecking facility, and I was building race cars and racing and very much involved with automobiles. When we got here, I didn't know what to do, so I ended up, strictly by accident, in the motion picture industry. I got into a company that was building dimming systems and lighting for motion picture, television, and stage. And I spent 30 years in that industry. But
what were some of the shows that maybe the audience knows about, if I could ask you that?
Well, I built the systems for ABC in New York, ABC here in Los Angeles, KTTV. I did one for Churubusco Studios in Mexico City.
Wow.
Did one for in Acapulco, some in Europe. We built stuff for all over the world, including, what was interesting is one was for an Arab country. Mm-hmm. And when they came to us, I happened to be Jewish, and they said, we want your system, but you can't put your name on it. So
really?
I told them as long as they pay in American dollars, they can put their name on it.
That's funny.
Which was rather interesting. But meanwhile, I was coming out to Oxnard simply because of the weather. It was beautiful. I wanted to live here. I was a fisherman, used to go out fishing to the islands pretty much every weekend, but the freeway didn't even go through at the time. So what my decision is that we would move to Oxnard when I retired out of that business. In 1987, we made the move. We bought a house in Oxnard Shores, and I bought a factory, 12,000 square foot factory on Statham, and kind of brought my business here, knowing that I was not going to stay in the motion picture industry because people from Hollywood weren't going to come out here to see me. I then got involved with Harley Davidson.
Really?
And
that's a name.
Yeah, and we designed and manufactured aftermarket products for Harley and for Easy Rider for about 3 years. The recession hit and two things happened. Harley took all my designs and went to China with them, and Easy Rider went to Taiwan. So they pretty much put me out of business. At that point, we decided it was time to back down, sold the building, and got rid of our house, our big house in the Shores, and we moved up to Carriage Square. I had never heard of the neighborhood councils in the 9 years that we lived at the beach. It wasn't until about a year after we got up to into living in Carriage Square, and I got a flyer one day. I looked at it, it looked interesting, and I went to the meeting. Make a long story short, within a year, I was the chairman of the neighborhood council for Carrick Square. That was 16 years ago, and I still hold that position. Very interested in what goes on in this city. I'm also on the board of directors for the Performing Arts Center. The reason I got involved with that was because I was at a meeting where they were talking about possibly either tearing it down because it wasn't being used properly or giving it to the school district. And I felt that was wrong. We couldn't afford to lose the only thing that I felt would bring culture to Oxnard. So at that point, I got myself involved in the as a member of the board of directors. I'm also on the Measure O committee, which in fact I have a meeting this afternoon there. So
is that the half cent?
Yes, that's the half cent additional
Taxes, revenues?
Revenue that comes to the city and how it's being used. And we have a committee which unfortunately doesn't meet very often. Last time we met was in 2016. So today we are having a meeting, or at least this afternoon we're having a meeting, and we're going to attempt to set some regular schedule to have meetings.
No, and that's, you know, it's fascinating that you got involved because you showed up, and they saw your talent, and they grabbed you, and we were real fortunate to have you 16 years, and looking forward to seeing your experience and what you bring to the table really affect some positive things in the year 2018 for this wonderful community called Oxnard. So with that, Len, thank you so much for your contribution to our community. And with that, I'm just going to say, this is Peter Godinez. Good morning, Oxnard. Until next time.